So let's be honest, who was waking up your Tesla Model 3 during Christmas dinner? Guilty. Yes, we did have to wait a little bit longer for the Tesla holiday software update in the UK, but has it been worth the wait? I won't pad with any backstory, let's just get on and have a look at it. So rather than me read the release notes for 2020.48.26 to you, what I'll do, I'll put them on the screen with different numbers, so feel free to pause, and as long as you pause at a different number on each screen, then you'll get a different page for all the release notes, but it will cover all of them. Now, what you'll find is interesting is that even though these are the release notes for 2020.48.26, they actually say 2020.48.25 on them, which fits with the fact that they were trying to get this out in a rush. And there's probably a few typos in there, hence the 2020.48.25 on the release notes, even though these are definitely, if we look in the software, 2020.48.26. So whilst you're pausing, I'll give you a little brief overview of what's new in 2020.48.26 before going into a lot more detail on each of the new features. If there's something that particularly interests you though, I have put timestamps in the description, so you can just skip to whichever part of the holiday update that you're most interested in. But it appears not all of us have been good boys and girls this year, because not all the new features are available on every Model 3. And unfortunately, that includes probably the best new feature that's been added, the Boombox. If you're an early adopter and you had a Model 3 that's been manufactured before the 1st of September 2019, it won't have an external speaker and therefore you can't play out sounds through the Boombox. And remember, that's manufactured the 1st of September, not delivered. So in the UK, that probably means if you took delivery of your Model 3 before mid-October 2019, you're probably not going to have this feature. And that's because by the time it's been manufactured in Fremont on September the 1st, put on a shipping container, put through the Panama Canal, I think they end up in Belgium and then shipped back to the UK, you're probably looking at a 5-6 week window. So a brief overview of what's new in 2020.48.26 is they've changed the driver visualization quite dramatically, the user interface. They've changed how the release notes are presented. They've added the Boombox, but obviously, as I've just mentioned, to only some Model 3s. They've updated how Superchargers are displayed, and they've added new games as well as changed scheduled departure. Hopefully you managed to pause all that at the right screens. If not, don't worry, I'm going to go through each one in more detail now. So I'm going to start with the stuff I don't think you're going to be as interested with, and that's the games. I'm not much of a Tesla gamer myself, but they've added 3 new games. One is the Battle of Polytopia, which is a turn-based strategy game. I think a poor man's Sid Meier's Civilization, from what I can get from it. But the new thing is it's online, but you have to create a Tesla Gamer account for that. So that could be interesting. I might have a play with that in a bit. The other one is Cat Quest, which I'm referring to similar to Zelda or maybe Mario. So it looks a little bit like that. You can play this with your PlayStation 4 or Xbox controller, so you can just plug those into the USB port like you can with the Tesla's version of Mario Kart. And then the one that I don't think needs any explanation is Solitaire, which is your card-based game, which used to get everyone going once you had a Windows-based PC and you used to play it at school when your teacher thought you were actually doing some work. But as I said, I don't really play any of these games, so it doesn't really bother me, because what I find is if I'm using it when I'm supercharging, then by the time I've had a wee, had a snack, answered some WhatsApps and checked Instagram, I'm ready to go again, so I don't bother ever playing these games. When they might come into their own though is when we get auto lane keeping systems in the UK, which means we can actually play these games while we're driving along at 70 miles an hour and the car's on autopilot. Then I might be more interested in them. But let me know what you think. Do you ever play these games, or do you think at the moment it's a bit of a waste of time? I'd be interested to know. The next thing that's new is scheduled departure. Now you can get into that 2 ways. You can do it through the aircon and you can just click schedule through that way, or I might do it the other way because otherwise you're just going to hear the fans blowing in the background. You can do it by going into your charging setup and you can click it here. Now, the idea of this is that in the past, if you wanted to schedule your car to be nice and preheated, then you'd set what time you were planning to depart, and the Tesla Model 3 would then work out how it needed to charge your car. So it'd start probably at like 3 in the morning to make sure you had the designated charge by the time you set off. It would also then precondition the battery and make sure the cabin was nice and warm. Tesla have recognised that there's a lot of times when you might want to use your off-peak charging rates. So they've put an option in here now to fill out when your peak charging rates are, or sorry, your off-peak charging rates are. So the Model 3 will aim to charge during those rates. Now, if it doesn't manage to charge enough in the off-peak hours, it will continue charging into the peak hours because its priority is for you to get to that designated charge rate, and it will kind of sacrifice everything else for that. But once you reach your designated charge rate, it will cut off your charging. Then, say you want to leave at 8 o'clock and your Tesla Model 3 stop charging at 4:30 in the morning, it would preheat your cabin and precondition your battery so your optimal conditions ready to set off. However, I have found, depending on your charging setup, this can be quite temperamental. So it doesn't work if your Model 3 is not plugged in. It will precondition the battery, but it doesn't appear that it will heat the cabin up. If your Model 3 is plugged in, but you've got a smart charger that isn't potentially delivering charge, say, for example, my charger is set up so that it will only charge between midnight and 4:30 in the morning, then again, it will only precondition the battery. Even though it's plugged in, it only seems that it will preheat the cabin when you've met your designated charge and your Model 3 is plugged in. I haven't played around with this a huge amount, so I could be wrong with this. But what I found was if I wanted it to preheat the cabin and there wasn't enough charge, it would prioritize the charging. If I changed my charge rate down so it met it, then the climate control will come on to preheat the cabin. So as I said, I've got to play with this a little bit more to properly understand it. But if you're really relying on it, you might want to just keep a close eye on it the first few times you use it and try and figure out what's best with your charging setup and how you've plugged in your Model 3. But easy enough to use. The other thing that they've changed with this is how you switch between scheduled start time and scheduled departure. And it's this little line here underneath on the charging screen. And you just have to click that. It's only a small area, but it will change from a scheduled start time to a scheduled departure. So again, a pretty minor, but I think a handy addition is the fact that when you look at superchargers now, it changes the display on how they're displayed. So it will say how many stalls are available on the pin rather than just have the electric symbol on the pin. So we can see here we've got lots of availability, no one's traveling at the minute, so you can kind of choose which supercharger you're going to go to. Now in the UK, we've not got a massive amount of superchargers, so chances are you're going to probably be going to the supercharger that's on your route anyway. But I imagine this will be handy for cities where you might have an option of going right to one, left to another, same distance, but you need to hit supercharger and you can see which has got the most availability as well. So slight change to that, but does make it a lot handier to use, and it just gives you the information a lot quicker. Right, on to what I think is the best bit of this, is the driver visualizations. You can see they've allocated a lot more space on the right hand side of the screen. So you've got a much bigger display showing the car driving around and showing the Model 3 in the first place. Now, I don't think my cameras are going to do this justice, but it looks really cool. Like the detail they've put on the Model 3, the graphic is really good. And it just looks like your Model 3, basically. It's really clever. Now, as before, it does do animation. So if I open the door, you can see my driver's door opens lovely. I don't know where the windows go down. Oh my God, they do, look. That's good, isn't it? They're in time as well. That's genius. I just love these cars. So let's see if the indicator works. Oh, yeah, I've put it on the wrong side. If I put it on the side, you can see. There you go. So we've got indicators, flash the lights. I don't think they work by the looks of it. Let's see if we turn the lights on, what happens now. Yep, lights come on. That's clever, isn't it? That's really good. So they've updated that. Now, one of my bugbears here, look, it says to open the trunk. In the UK, it's called a boot. Admittedly, I do call it a frunk. I gave in with that, but I'm going to still say that I'm opening the boot, just to prove a point. But yeah, so you can still open everything from here. I won't, let's do it, I'll open it, and you can see the boot obviously opens up, which is pretty good as well. Now I'm going to have to go out and shut that. But yeah, driver visualizations on the opening screen, very handy. Now they've changed the layout along the bottom here as well. So the majority of it is the same, but we've got the additions of the windscreen wipers and the rear cameras, which are easier to access now. It used to be that you have to swipe left and right up here. I think that makes sense because they're two functions that you probably are more likely to access as you're going along. But otherwise, no major changes to the layout from what I can remember. And it does feel just a little bit more intuitive to kind of like find your way around. In terms of entertainment, this extra tab here is set up all the same. I have gone through each of these tabs and nothing significant has changed. Similarly, I've gone through all of the driver settings and the car settings, and I've not found any major differences with any of those bits. So in itself, just a bit more real estate for the driver visualizations on the right hand side, and some icon changes down at the bottom. But this change out, this visualization here is wicked. I don't think you'll appreciate it till you see it in person. When they say new driver visualizations, I was expecting new signs, stuff like that, and there isn't, from what I can see driving around, anything like that. I think actually they updated the driver visualizations in 2020.48.12.1. Don't know what you guys think, but I've noticed a lot smoother animations. It's almost like the cars are running at a higher frame rate, and that was in the previous software update that came, 2-3 weeks ago. You get more angles of the cars turning round corners, and I've noticed it's mapping out the road a little bit better. So as you go around a roundabout, it will show you the entire curvature of the roundabout. And it didn't seem to do that before, but I don't think that's specific to this update. That's something I'd noticed in the previous software update. Now I suspect that full self-driving beta is actually running underneath now in shadow mode, and that's not related to this software update. That was, as I said, the previous one. And why I say that, and it could be me just doing wishful thinking here, but it's the fact that the autopilot seems to behave in a slightly different way. It seemed to approach parked cars at the side of the road slightly differently, and it would draw the route around the car that was parked. Not if it was parked half on the pavement, just purely if it was parked next to the curb. And I know from watching videos in full self-driving beta, it can now differentiate between parked cars and cars that are stopped in traffic. So there was just a few subtle clues in the last software update that makes me think autopilot is behaving differently and the visualizations were slightly different. So I think full self-driving beta is now running in shadow mode in the UK, which means hopefully we should be seeing it. I say soon, I think it's probably going to be end of March if we're lucky, just because of the time frame that it takes to bring that out. Now, it's not all bad news, because I highly suspect that we will be getting a lot new visualizations very soon. Version 11 of the software has got to be imminent now, and I think that was what was meant to be released during the holiday update. But being as they're running a little bit behind schedule, they had to make some sacrifices, so I think version 11 is on the cards. With it, a lot new driver visualizations. I'm expecting new vehicles in the form of maybe emergency vehicles, new signs. Definitely, I think a giveaway sign is going to be added, or a yield sign if you're in America. The other thing, I'm expecting more road markings, and that would all make sense if you think they've made all this larger display for the driver visualizations, but they haven't really added anything to it. So they've got to have a lot more on the cards. And if you look at the full self-driving betas that is just like running in polygons almost, then that does use a lot more visualization, and it's marking out central reservations, hard shoulders, traffic signs, people, and it's mapping a lot more different information. So I think they've made the space. Next update, I reckon they're going to fill it, which will be amazing. So back to what we've got at the minute though, and what you will find when you're driving around is it'll be better for passengers, because obviously you're meant to be keeping your eye on the road, but this visualizes brilliantly as you're driving along. So as you turn the wheel, it turns the Model 3's wheel. As you accelerate, the wheels turn on the Model 3. It's like you're playing a computer game, but you're in real life. It's brilliant. So once you get that, have a look, rotate round different views. It's a really good animation. And then finally onto the Boombox feature, which, as I said, if you have a Model 3 that was manufactured before September 2019, then unfortunately you're not going to get this feature. Now, if you're unsure, you can find out by going into software and then additional vehicle information, and it'll tell you something about your Model 3. And you can see here I've got no external amplifier, which means my Model 3 has not got Boombox. And that's why it wasn't in the release notes. You probably noticed as you were scrolling through them, it wasn't in my release notes, and that's because my Model 3 is too old, even though it's just over a year old, which is pretty lame. But what it does, it plays out a sound of your choice at low speed. So I've heard people are using the Knight Rider car. I personally, I think I'd have gone for like Darth Vader's Death March thing as he walks in. That would have been quite cool. But the idea is it allows pedestrians in car parks and areas where they might not be able to see you or hear you at lower speeds to actually hear something moving along. Twitter went crazy with all the people that have got these Model 3s without the external amplifier, saying, how can we retrofit them? We want to retrofit a speaker to be able to get this functionality. There's been no replies that I've seen on Twitter from Elon Musk. But if the demand's there and the customers are there, which they definitely are, then maybe that's something Tesla will offer, because I know in the US at least, there will be a lot more Model 3s that were manufactured way before September the 1st, 2019. Apart from just driving at low speeds, you can make a custom sound for when you're summoning the car as well, so it can play a variety of different tunes. It is quite a cool feature, but I do think maybe it's a bit gimmicky and a party trick. Like, as much as I would have loved it, obviously I love new toys, I'm not that gutted that I haven't got this feature, because knowing me, I'd be too embarrassed to play some ridiculous sound, and I'd just play a humming or something out of it, which the car kind of does at low speed anyway. And if you really, really want the Boombox feature, I've got a solution. So there you go, all the features are technically available to everyone if you don't mind modding your car just a little bit. That's it for this Tesla holiday software update, or 2020.48.26. If you like that, give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in anything to do with Teslas or electric cars, I publish videos weekly, so think about hitting that subscribe button straight away. Thanks for watching, I'll see you again soon.